You think that was day one? Of course not. But Drag Queen Story Hour just might have been. All right, welcome back to the party, everybody. I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Everybody hit that like and subscribe and let's party. So I'm sure you guys saw that Culture War episode with the drag queens going on and debating whether or not it was appropriate for children, which of course it is not, but that did not stop a drag queen from doing all the drag cope that you could ever hope to see. So I know we talk about this stuff all the time, but again, it's really important to highlight the specific talking points that these people use to try to dance around what is actually happening.
Specifically, drag performers are grooming children. We're not grooming them. We're trying to say that you are welcome to be you as you are. If you are cis, heterosexual, fabulous. If you end up being queer, fabulous. We're not trying to steer you any particular way. But I remember being a queer child. And
it doesn't matter if you're trying to steer anyone in any direction. By normalizing that which is not normal, you are creating an issue with people who want normalcy. You may not think you're grooming, but the problem is you are. By normalizing that which is not normal, you are moving the needle on what is acceptable in society. And up until very, very recently, people dressing up in sexualized clothing and then taking that clothing off was not appropriate for children. Now, I'm sure that, there's people like this, I don't even, dude, chick, I don't know, this person who is decently rational and, is not dressed in anything provocative. But then if you're going to read in front of the children, then the question is why? Why? There's a million different things that you could use, that you could normalize by using story time with kids. There's so many different things. So the question is, why this? Why this? And so they're going to go into this story about representation and, I didn't have anything, but it doesn't fly.
Remember not having any sort of mentor or model to look at. And I felt very othered and I felt very different. And it actually caused a lot of mental health problems. And so when you actually introduce children to the diversity of gender identity,
and there it is, the diversity. You know what I didn't see ever growing up? Any brown person on TV that wasn't behind the counter at a 7-Eleven. You know what I also didn't see? 5'4" movie stars getting all the girls. But guess what? I turned out just fine. Because it turns out that you don't need to see yourself in a movie in order to understand that you have value.
The diversity of everything other than the cis heteronormative family, you show kids that it's okay to be you as you are. You don't have to follow this particular guideline that is, again, defined by the patriarchy.
The patriarchy, of course, the patriarchy. But I can, patriarchy aside, I can understand that notion of, if you're a young kid who is going through whatever, to be able to see that might be helpful. I'm not disagreeing with that. What I'm saying is the adverse effect of other kids who are not questioning their gender identity, beginning to question their gender identity before they have the faculties to question their gender identity. You are the one introducing that conversation at a time that it is not appropriate.
And you can be whoever you are, and you're welcome to be who you are. Yep. I'm not saying you must be trans, you must be a drag performer.
But that's the grooming part. That's the grooming part. You're not there yet. But you get introduced to, it's just a drag queen reading a storybook. Oh, okay, let me go Google what drag queens normally do. Oh, okay, it's normally this. It's in a club. That's why you're not saying that you are paying the kids, because we're not saying that. We're saying that you are leading children down this road that we don't want them to go down.
But if you end up being that when you grow up, great.
But that's a very different thing than being it as a child. That's the whole point.
I remember not having that sort of influence. And I remember the impact that it had on my mental health as a queer youth in the late 1990s and the early 2000s.
Okay, so either you turned out fine as a drag queen, or you're saying you have a bunch of issues and you happen to turn out to be a drag queen. Neither of those are good arguments for putting drag queens in front of children.
Not seeing anybody that was like me anywhere in society. And it made me fearful to be who I am.
Oh, you're fearful to be who you are because you didn't see it on TV.
Are you familiar with Desmond is Amazing?
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts? I'll ask some questions, but I just want to let you open up.
Yeah, I don't know Desmond. I have seen Desmond online. I know that they are a queer youth who wanted to engage in drag. And
yeah, so if you're not familiar, Desmond is Amazing is a drag queer youth, as pictured, and does very adult type of behaviors, and clearly is not an adult.
And I think that's perfectly okay. I don't
Of course you do.
think that Desmond's parents are behind the scenes saying, you have to be a drag performer. We're trying to groom you to be trans.
So you're telling me that this kid who's got some level of fame and notoriety and money for doing this thing, if he was just like, you know what, Mom? I know you guys got to quit your jobs because of the money that I'm bringing in, but I just feel like this isn't me. They're just going to be like, okay, we'll go back to work. We'll go back to our normal crappy lives before you gave us all this money. Maybe. Hopefully. But are you sure? You sound sure. But I don't know how you could be.
There is actually no benefit to it because queer people and trans people are overwhelmingly ostracized in the society that we live in, that I don't think that a person who didn't want to engage in that would choose to engage in that knowing the kind of ostracism and criticism and hatred that would come to follow.
That is the logic that you would apply to an adult doing something that if they didn't want to do it, they wouldn't do it. We make kids do things that they don't want to do all the time. Going to school is one of them. But also, there's an understanding from children that despite the fact that you may not want to go to school, you have to go anyway. The adults said, it's good for me. I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but I'm trusting the adults. So now the adults are telling me, go look up what a drag queen is. And you don't see the connection at all.
The things that I've read about this child are disgusting. And that's so much more horrific than this person saying, I want to put on a skirt and a wig and perform.
Shifting the blame. Why do you think, I'm not defending anybody who is harassing a child. In fact, I'm doing the exact opposite. But why do you think people are upset? Have you stopped to think about that? Or have you just said, well, this is a person doing a thing, so we should all support it because we should support everyone doing everything? Just a tiny bit of thought. Tiny bit.
You're familiar with go-go dancing, I assume?
Yeah.
And bikini bars?
Sure, yeah.
In many states, what they define as stripping is the removal of any clothing on stage with no nudity.
Yeah, so if you don't live in one of these states, you probably don't know that if you go to the strip club, you ain't seeing any boobies. You ain't seeing any boobies. Luckily, New Jersey's not one of these states, but I'm not really a strip club guy. But yeah, there's clubs where men go to pay to see women take off clothes and still remain in a bikini. How is that different than what Desmond is Amazing is doing? It's not. Where do you think Desmond got the idea to put on a skirt and go on a stage and take those clothes off? You think it started there? You think somebody just said, okay, Desmond, here's what's good. I want you to wear girls' clothes and go and dance on a stage and then take off the clothes. You think that was day one? Of course not. But Drag Queen Story Hour just might have been.
The act of removing clothing is the stripping of clothing.
So, Tim, this is stripping?
Yep.
If you were on stage for a bunch of adults...
I'm on stage for a bunch of adults right now.
Offering you money for the explicit purpose of seeing you remove clothing, this is where you have...
It may not be as risque as you think, especially if you're into all this kinky shit. But yes, that is stripping.
Context matters, right? Like,
yeah,
I think...
But I think I get where you're going at, Tim, but here's the thing. Drag performers, like there is the reveal of drag. I think that a lot of people just aren't familiar with drag culture, and there is this idea of performing where there's a reveal. And that doesn't mean stripping down and being sexual. Taking off a garment to show an undergarment does not mean that it is stripping or being sexual.
So stripping is not necessarily stripping. It's only stripping if it's actually stripping. But stripping is not necessarily stripping because it could just be stripping.
What?
So in, I think South Dakota might be the state, but there's a bunch of states. Women aren't allowed to be fully nude on stage. So they have what they call bikini bars or go-go bars. The women will go on stage and do what is in every way identical to what Desmond does on stage here, removing an outer layer of clothing in exchange for money from the audience. Desmond is a child in this. I could be wrong. It's been several years. This is 2019. My understanding was that this was an adult bar full of adult males watching the child perform on stage and do things that many have argued were sexually suggestive, especially in the Gwen Stefani portion of this, and then in exchange for money.
And who thinks this drag queen is going to have an issue with that? No, me neither. If you don't either, you will definitely find a home at the TheIndianJesus Discord server where the party never ends. That's right, 24/7 we are in there hanging out, playing games, having conversations, and after every single live stream, we go in there for an after panel where you're not stuck behind your keyboard, but you're actually on screen with me and everybody else. You can come up if you want to, you don't have to. Either way, it's a good time. Come and join us.
So for many people who live, and we can just say perhaps in a more conservative area, this is indistinguishable from stripping. So this is an 11-year-old doing the same things bikini dancers do for money.
Yeah, but I don't think that it's indistinguishable from stripping. You know, I, as a drag performer, I've been performing for 8 years now, and I will go out there and I might come out in something like this where I'm wearing a blazer and I perform and I take it off and people will cheer and give me money. Are they cheering and giving me money because I'm stripping? And
yes. What do you think they're clapping for? You just talked about the reveal. Again, the point here isn't that, you are paying a child by showing them drag. The point is that you're setting them down a path that we don't want them to go down.
Turning them on. No, it is entertainment and it's a performance and it's a part of queer arts. I don't think that I don't think that they're trying to be sexual. I don't even think that the parents are trying to sexualize the person.
Of course, you have to say that, because if you acknowledge the reality that obviously that is sexualized, then your whole argument that drag queen is not sexual falls apart. Of course you would say that.
I think that this is a kid who has seen
expressive.
drag culture, knows that they're queer, and wants to engage in it in a way that is age appropriate.
But it's not age appropriate. That's the point.
Did that child get naked on stage? I don't think so.
I don't think so. Maybe you should know, because what if he did? It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. I'm telling you guys, this is getting worse. This is getting worse. I think the addition of new problems is slowing down, but the problems that we have are burning. So, I mean, definitely go check out the rest of the video, the really good conversation. But guys, we have to keep this at the forefront. We have to make sure we continue talking about the stuff that matters. Because the fact of the matter is, not only are there people who still don't even know that this is an issue, but there's people like that person pushing and trying to give it more air, get it in front of more children. Why? If it doesn't make sense, it shouldn't. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you for hanging out once again. I have been your host, Lutch, aka TheIndianJesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, I am out of here. Peace.